In this episode of More About Mortgages, we're going to be taking it to Reddit and answering some questions from first-time homebuyers. So stay tuned, guys. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of More About Mortgages. My name is Ian Moore. I'm a loan officer here with Premier Mortgage Lending, and I appreciate you joining me here for another episode. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. As always, you're going to get consistent, up-to-date, real-time mortgage lending insight and knowledge and information that'll help you in your journey to home buying or refinancing your existing mortgage loans. Today's episode, I've been doing a lot of reading on Reddit and some other sites from first-time home buyers and doing a lot of answering of their questions. And in this episode of More About Mortgages, I wanted to break down for you guys answering a few people's questions from Reddit. Today we have a question here from a young 22-year-old who's looking to buy a house. He asks, hey guys, I'm new here. I'm 22 years old with about $80,000 saved, zero debt, working, making about $10K after taxes a year. What advice would you give me? I'm looking into buying a house with at least 2 to 3 apartments and to put rent on it. Any advice what I should consider? Mainly what kind of price I should be comfortable looking at. Great question. Super knowledgeable to go on to a site like this and ask questions like this before getting the process started. That's always a good idea, guys. And the way that I would answer it is that at 22 years old with about 80K saved, that might be a typo for you, having $10,000 a year income after taxes. Maybe that was $100,000 a year, I'm not sure. That would be a heck of a lot of money to save, earning only $10K a year after taxes. So I'm guessing that was a typo, but I'll answer your question as if it were not a typo. I would say that at $10K a year after taxes, you're gonna have trouble qualifying for essentially anything, because at $833 a month in qualifying income, you're not gonna find a mortgage payment with principal, interest, taxes, and insurance included for less than really $1,000 in this market, let alone half of 833 to keep your debt to income ratio at 50% or less. So I would say if that is not a typo, you're going to need more income and ultimately maybe even a parent to be a non-occupying borrower on the loan to help increase your qualifying income, so that way you can still get into a new house on your own with just a cosigner, essentially. If it is a typo, and let's just say you do earn 100K a year, the problem with this scenario is that you will not be able to use that rental income towards qualifying for the loan because you do not have any ownership interest already. You need to have at least 1 year ownership interest of a property that you own, either as the primary residence, so as the owner of the house that you live in, or you need to have 1 year ownership history of a rental property where you collect rent, or at least landlord history where you've collected payments from renters consistently. If you do not have any of that history or criteria, then unfortunately that rental income from the other units of the property you'd be buying, you wouldn't be able to use towards qualifying. So if you could get into a property without utilizing that rental income from the other units and still qualify, that's a great idea, and that'll set you up with some passive income moving forward, where you're going to be collecting income from those 2 to 3 additional units of that house that you're living in now every month, and that'll go right into your bank. So that's a great idea, but again, you won't be able to use the rental income towards the qualifying of the loan. I say a lot of people your age will get into maybe a condo or a townhome first that they're going to live in, because if you're not even living in a property that you own currently, you might want to consider getting into a condo or a small single family, live in it for a year or two, and then convert it to a rental. Take the money from that, or take money from that you've saved living in that house to go and purchase a new property, which at that time could be a 2 to 3 unit home, because then you can utilize the rent from those other units of that multifamily property towards qualifying for the loan. So you could buy a bigger house that's a bigger multifamily, either more units or just larger in square footage, or in a better location, and ultimately attract higher end renters. So you won't have to worry about fixing things up, people not paying rent. You'll have high end, consistent renters that'll stay there for a long time. If it's not a typo, talk to one of your folks about being a non-occupying borrower on the loan. If it is a typo, you've earned 100K a year after taxes, then you're in a great spot. If you can afford a multi-unit or multi-family home now without utilizing the rental income from the other additional units, by all means. If not, maybe start out with a small single family or a townhome or condo that you live in for a year or two before converting to a rental property and purchasing another multifamily unit that you can utilize the rent from the other additional units on. Thank you for your question though. Always a great idea to get on and hop onto a site like this where you can ask a question on a blogging scenario to get answers from professionals that know the answers and have been there. So another one that I'll answer real quick here is that we have somebody here posted by Throw It Away 202. I'm a first-time home buyer looking in a super competitive market that's in a slowdown time right now. I keep getting advised by real estate agents showing various properties, not their agent, they put in parentheses, to do a 10-year ARM instead of a 30-year fixed. I've done some research on my own, but I'm curious if anybody has any opinions on this. He says he thinks the pros of the 30-year fix, predictability and stability for the full term of the loan, outweighs the pros of an ARM. Many keep saying interest rates will go down, but who knows? 10 years is far away, and I don't feel too sure. Well, that's a great question. And I would say, first and foremost, I don't know why real estate agents are giving you advice on financing and lending. They are in a completely different environment they're in the same industry, of course, in real estate, but they're not on the lending side at all. They don't have to do any of the continuing education that lenders have to do. They don't have the same kind of knowledge requirements that lenders have to do. And really good real estate agents or realtors always send those questions back to the lender or the loan officer. They send their client right to the loan officer and say they're going to give you the best, most direct answers on those questions. So contact them. And if that's the case with a lot of my referral partners and my realtors, they just say contact Ian, give Ian a call, and I'm going to answer right away or be able to give you a call back right away and get those questions answered for you. Secondly, to dive into sort of the bread and butter of the question here, the 10-year ARM versus the 30-year fixed, there was a very small window, and what I've been telling my clients lately who have had similar questions is that there was a small window maybe a month and a half ago or so when the rates started first going up to 5.5%, even 6% or higher, where ARMs kind of came into play there for about a 2-week period where it made sense to lock into an ARM at 5-1 or 7-1 or 10-1. That's fixed for those first 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years because the rate was lower for an ARM than it would have been for a fixed rate. But over the last 3 years and now again after that 2-week period, there's what's called market compression where the rates are low enough and the fixed rates are low enough where the ARMs don't make sense. I mean, you're not even going to get a lower rate initially for that first 5, 7, or 10-year period. If you have a good FICO credit score, you're going to get a lower rate with a fixed rate loan right now than you would with an ARM. I mean, a lot of credit unions and banks have specialty products because they use portfolio loans or they fund their own loans essentially and service loans with their own money. So they a lot of times will offer products that are adjustable rate mortgages that have super low rates for that initial period. However, if it's a 3-year ARM, 5-year ARM, or even a 7-year ARM, be super weary about what the variable rate will be once it converts, because a lot of them are like prime plus 5, prime plus 5.5. You're looking at like a 10% rate if that were to convert in today's market. So just keep in mind that the rate might be super attractive early on from those banks and credit unions, but eventually it's going to convert, and depending on where rates are at that time, you could be looking at your payment tripling, quadrupling even in some cases. So keep that in mind. And do not take financing or lending advice from your real estate agent. If they're an unbelievably professional real estate agent that does a ton of business and works with a ton of people buying and selling homes, then they're likely going to send you to the loan officer to get those questions answered because they know, even though they've done it more times than most other real estate agents in the country, they know that the finance guy is going to be able to answer those finance questions better and more directly than they would. So even the best real estates in the country send those questions back to their lenders. That's what you should pretty much do, is contact your loan officer and whoever you're working with for financing and get those questions answered. But they should tell you that a 30-year fix is likely going to be your best bet depending on what your FICO score is. So I appreciate you guys asking these questions. Keep them coming. I appreciate you guys watching another episode of More About Mortgages. If you ever have questions related to your mortgage lending process or your financing, give me a call, shoot me a message, send me an email, whatever you guys would like to do and whatever's easiest for you. I'm happy to help any way I can and provide you guys with consistent, reliable mortgage lending advice and tips here at More About Mortgages. Thanks, guys.